Good morning, Governor Palacios.
Good morning, Mrs. Torres or Troy. How
Yeah,
are you?
Troy, I'm well, thank you. I wish I was in Saipan though.
I wish you were. You created a firestorm with your op-ed.
We'll talk about that. And I'm anxiously awaiting your office's op-ed to our editorial so that the
Yeah, we're
can
we're,
have
we're looking into that, and we're going to provide some of the details. And unfortunately, I admit that a major failure of our administration is getting as much information out to the public and to the press, um, and we're looking to change that.
okay. That
So
is one of my key questions this morning, actually.
right. Well, you
Yeah.
can ask it.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
There's a whole lineup that I have, and I wanted to start. Thank you, first of all, for agreeing to this interview, and I just hope that we have a frank and candid conversation between two people that our candid audience can be able to watch this morning. And I want to start with the report that the December 31 report from your office to the Commonwealth Legislature about the financial position of the Commonwealth government, which, according to the numbers, is getting better. You want to talk about that first before we move on to the outlook?
Sure. Let me just start by saying that one of the first things we had to confront was the fiscal situation that we were in. Uh, I knew I had an inkling probably in November, December that things are not as good as it was when ARPA was just all over the place. But that was the first thing that we looked at, and put a lot of efforts on, is to put us in a better situation. We were in deep trouble actually when we first started. We were behind in audits, and we knew that we were overspending. So we needed to come up with a fiscal stabilization plan, with our special assistants for planning and budget, with our finance people, and I had to actually get some outside help, goddess from folks that are willing to help, and we put together a recovery plan, and some of those recovery plans items involves some very painful adjustments, like letting go of close to 600, probably 600 positions that were fully funded by ARPA, and we knew that ARPA was pretty much overcommitted. And the first thing that hit us was that we're gonna probably run out of ARPA funds for payroll by June or July of that year. So we had to make those really critical, albeit unpopular and painful decisions. So that's where we were with that, and we had to cut costs immediately, take a look at where we need to cut, and then we instituted a, a cut in hours, an austerity cut in hours, for even civil service positions. And uh, unless you're fully federally funded program, there's no options available. We're just gonna have to make those painful decisions. So that's where we came in. When we came in at that time, we had to stabilize, and it took us about a year of painful monitoring, where the economy was going. At the same time, coming out of COVID, you know, uh, regionally and even globally, economy was flat, if not uh, completely collapsed or in recession. So we need to pay attention to that part too, for revenue generations and getting the economy back on track. So that took us, you know, a year, 2 years actually, to continue to work on it. And we got back on track to getting the audits done, because that's very critical for even for federal programs. We needed to get those things done, and then to also really know where we were and where we are. So that took a lot of times, and so um, today we're in a much better position. The economy has slowly picked up, and with the cost containment situation, we continue to cut down the deficit, as probably shared with you already the amounts. From 2021, we had an audited $66 million uh,
Budget deficit.
deficit,
Yeah.
budget deficit in the general fund, and then we had I believe 36 to 38 million in
22.
22.
That's
And
unaudited though, right?
right now it's unaudited, but the financial drafts are already in place. So
But 2021
right,
is audited. 2021 is
right, yeah,
that's the audited.
2021 is audited, yeah. And so 2022, 2023, just at the looking at the financials balance sheet, it looks like we're in a much better position again, with about $3 to $4 million in deficit. Today, at the end of the year, Secretary of Finance's financial report shows actually a zero deficit, with at least $4 million of revenues collected over what was projected.
I have a
So we're in
question.
a much better position. We've stabilized our finances, and we will continue to be vigilant in monitoring expenses.
But because of the accumulated deficit between 2021 and 2023, you guys still have a large accumulated deficit to pay down, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so that continues to restrict cash flow. Would that be correct?
Yeah, in some ways, with cash flow management, that was also one of the issues is cash flow. Who's going to go first? Well, right out the door, we have several mandates. One is a constitutional mandates to the public school system of 25% of general fund. Then we have the settlement fund court mandate, which is 75% of the retirement pension. And we have also the college has a mandate, MBA has a mandate, so all these mandates. So we have to be scrambling and be very, very mindful of the cash management on a weekly to a monthly basis. And I know that sometimes, I mean, I asked the Treasury, so what are we paying out today, and where are we on the payroll? And then sometimes she says that, hey, I'm pulling my hair every day, Governor. So it's a struggle. It was a struggle, but I tell you, we're in a much better position today.
So the surplus recorded on the balance sheet for fiscal year 2024 essentially is a combination of cost containment, realization of savings, and a conservative projection of revenues, where you had more in collections by about between $4 and $5 million. But so a bunch of that also, the budget surplus has been predicated on the underfunding of agencies and even one branch of government, including that would be the judicial branch, right? And so, when will the time come when the government has enough revenues to appropriately fund the judiciary and the other agencies of the government that are severely underfunded?
Oh, and that's a very good question, because and that's the process with the legislature. The whole budget process is to hold everybody and make everybody conscionable to the continuing challenge that every government, and we can't when an agency comes and put forth a proposal for $15 million, you kind of look at it like, wait a minute, we've got 15 other agencies and programs and 25 other programs to fund. So where are the priorities? And so we continue to be mindful and looking at priorities from the different departments and branches of government, and continue to have these dialogues. And then we submit it to the legislative branch to go over. And that's sometimes, as you well know, it's not just the Commonwealth, even in Guam, with all your funding available, sometimes it becomes a struggle just to agree on to which priority we should address, which priority can wait. So, but back to your question, when will it be? When we finally accept the fact that we don't have an infinite amount of resources, and that we also have to try to do things as effectively and efficiently as possible. At the same time, provide the services, the level of services that our community needs. And I mean, I was in the trenches for a long time as the director of a division and a department head, as well as being in the House and the Senate. So I'm mindful, and I know the process. And when you submit your initial budget proposal to the governor's office, you
Ask for the world.
load it up,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
but so we continue to go through that process. I continue to ask our agencies to be mindful that hey, this is not something that's unlimited. We gotta put our resources where it really makes a real impact to our communities and where the communities' needs are being met. So
You bring up a very
uh,
good point about the co-sharing of fiscal responsibilities with the legislature. And just like here in Guam, and I've noted this over the past year, observing the Commonwealth legislature, how disappointed are you, Governor, in members of the legislature, including from your own Indem coalition, local coalition, who have not been so faithful to your call for fiscal responsibility and prioritization of the resources. And this is not in what they say, I'm talking about in what they've done over the past couple of years that they've been in power, where you see, resources that are being spent almost willy-nilly in a business as usual fashion, while priority services suffer. I mean, do you want to talk about that, and do you have a message for not anyone in particular, but perhaps for the entire legislature about how you expect to see things under your stewardship of the resources?
well, Troy, I don't want to go too far into that, because I know that's a different branch of government, and I don't want to go again and be very specific, because there are also some of our agencies are also doing the same thing. But having said all that, it is important that we all realize that we need to put the priorities together first and take care of those priorities, and anything else, you got to make sure that there's a nexus to public service. And even if you travel, or even if you buy something for this, there's something that has a nexus to public benefits, and that's even in our law, right? But I don't want to preach. I don't want to give a sermon to them. They are elected individuals in their own rights, and they should know that. I am not in the position well, I should be in the position, right? I should advocate for a more prudent expenditure of public funds. And I never come up publicly about it, really, but I know that sometimes in picnic table conversations when we go to an event or a barbecue for somebody at the beach, we talk about these things like, hey, where did this come from? Or Gava was like, well, and so we talk about it, and it's like, we gotta be mindful and conscious about this whole thing. And I will continue to advocate to our friends across the way, and even to the executive, I mean the judicial branch. I've had many meetings with the justices and the judges and the members of the judiciary also about, I'm very mindful of their needs also, but I also have to say that, hey, we only have this amount in the pot, and maybe this year we cannot fund this thing. Maybe we can continue to take a look at it next year, and it's just a matter of conversation and getting people all. And so, yeah, I have to initiate that.
Fair enough, fair enough. Governor, in the report, there was something I was hoping you or Secretary Narita could qualify or could explain. And it was on and I tried to do the math on it myself, but because your BGRT is staggered between 1 to 5
Right.
percentage points on sourced revenue, it was a little difficult to do the math on the economic surplus that equates to the tax surplus in BGRT of $11.9 million for those sectors. And I don't, and so let me premise this by saying you had over the past 2 years, HandMe, Chamber of Commerce, one of the newspapers hammering you all the time about economic development in the Commonwealth. And while it's true that this economic development has not necessarily trickled down to the everyday person, so to speak, economic development actually has been more over the past couple of years than your critics have been saying it is. You saw an $11.9 million increase in taxes over projections, collections from retail, financial services, and construction. Talk to our audience about how that happened, and what do you have to say to your critics about these numbers?
Well, first of all, there are different industries that we're trying to get going. One of the nightmares that I've had to face, and I couldn't believe it, is the amount of funding that was already available and were not put into implementation phase. The construction, we had like close to $200-300 million
Infrastructure development.
in infrastructure projects. That's just direct grants. And then we have the FEMA grants still coming in, and previous grants that were in place, but were really slowly. So what Apatang and I did was call in all the agencies, Public Works, NMHC, CIP projects, even CPA, and said, why aren't we moving these projects out? And what do we need to do to move them out? So we did that also in the first 2 years, right? Immediately, to begin to generate the funding, because we didn't know where and how fast the tourism industry was going to come back. So we need to, these were opportunities that we see we can generate economic activities just by getting these projects out online. But so that's what we did. We looked at other source of revenue and programs that could generate economies here.
So it's the federal cash inflows that have basically elevated economic activity in those 3 sectors: retail,
Right.
construction, financial services. I see. Okay. So
So
that
and that provided, and to my critics, I get it. I mean, there's nothing I can really do. I mean, I tell you, sometimes I wonder why it's almost a weekly narrative right? Why are they doing this? What is the impetus and what was the purpose of this? But I look at it. Of course, Hanmi is a hotel associations. They're only interested in their occupancy. Uh, they don't care about the other one. They don't care about whether Beach Road is being paved. They don't care whether, the Marpi tourist sites are being improved. They just punt that over to MVA.
Or if the
It's
CCP
their
is
own bottom
fixing to
line.
take over. Or if
Right.
the
It's just
CCP is fixing to take over the Commonwealth. They don't care about that.
right. Yeah. I mean, we have to do all these things, Troy, and looking at all the factors where we are regionally, where we are geopolitically. Don't I wish that everything was peaceful and every nation is commerce is our trading, everything is good. But the fact that matters, that's not the environment that we're in, right? And so when somebody says that, oh, my policy is this, uh, that's because we've taken a look at it and say, even we're not an independent nation. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we have to take a look at what is the federal policies and what is uh, um, are the federal restrictions. So, I mean, we can write op-eds all the time and go back and forth on this, and unfortunately, I'm starting to get to a point where, you know, these people are just writing their own narrative and not being fair about it. I might say, but God willing, I will continue to have the courage and the strength to just continue to work where it really is going to count. And that is to the people of the Commonwealth. Now,
Well, I
there
know.
are
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
there are programs, of course, that we have initiated to begin to address the small businesses and entrepreneur initiatives. And just this year, it really wasn't covered in the local media that we have opportunities for small businesses and even big businesses to access financial resources as they rebuild their companies. And that is the state small business
SSBCI.
yeah, SSBCI. And we have a $57 million opportunity for all the businesses in the Commonwealth to access that.
Is that through
And that's
CETA?
a bank, that's through CETA, but it's the primary bank is the Bank of Guam. So it's a bank-driven initiative. But I was talking to CETA, like, what do we need to do to get our businesses that are challenged financially and needing help? What do we need to do to help them? Now we got to go out and say, hey, here's this opportunity. What do you need? Is there any help that you need to get going with Bank of Guam and taking a look at this, how you could be helped? So
SSBCI is how former Governor Eddie Calvo jump-started the Guam economy in 2011.
is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
And then that's,
right
in
before the
this,
tax refunds.
yeah, one of the problems with that program is previously in the previous administration, the the Department of Commerce and Treasury put a hold on the SSBCI 2.0 because of the investigation into the boost program.
I see.
And so they initially had it at Department of Commerce, and then the Treasury already had approved it, but they didn't release the funds or the program and awarded it because there was an ongoing investigation with all the ARPA situation.
That
And
makes sense.
so, it was only until this last July that it was fully, because we kept requesting and for information on what is going on, and they finally told us, and only until we had a federally insured bank that stepped up and said we'll take on the challenge. And so Bank of Guam did that, and so those capitals and those access to financial resources is available since July, and I encourage people in the Commonwealth to go to CEDA or call them up and maybe call Bank of Guam to see what kind of assistance. You know, in a way, sometimes I look back at the lost opportunity that we had with some of the ARPA funds, quote unquote, the boost program. That could have made a lot of difference, and it could have continued to make a lot of difference and help our small businesses, our mid sized business, even the big businesses, continue to be assisted through these trying times.
Governor, there was what I thought to be a very bright spot in the outlook or on the report, and it was in your outlook section, which was buried at the bottom. And I just needed to confirm, is there $800 million in military spending and an additional $500 million in FEMA and CDBG DR funding that has yet to be spent in cash?
Well, with the military part, we know that just by looking at the awards for TINIAN and even a little bit for ROTA and Saipan, we have that on the books. It's gonna be multi-year. Okay.
But a multi-year of cash being let out through the contract.
Right.
Into the spending.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so it's cash that hasn't even been spent yet. It's coming.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And so, recently, again, the our initiative for a construction tax, which Guam already has in the book, by the way, just passed the legislature, and we're reviewing that at this end, and that provides for more direct benefits to programs, and all the islands, even the northern islands, mayors would get some of that funding. So we're projecting that that's going to generate more than what the Secretary of Finance is projecting. She's very conservative, but I think it'll go up to maybe $10 to $20 million annually. Once, if we get going with all the projects, prior to the pandemic, we had a congressional $254 million appropriation from Congress for community block grant for the disaster. 254 million. Half of that had to go to infrastructures and public facilities. The other half went directly to housing, provided, close to 500, maybe 600 residential. It started out as a low interest loan, but the Northern Marianas Housing Corporation made it a grant. So it's pretty much, and that's generating a lot of activities, albeit, again, we'll go back to your first question about my critics. Of course, they won't say that. They won't put a light. So, now it's up to me and my team to start looking in there and telling everybody that it's not all doom and gloom, that we are working towards a better, sustainable community.
So economic growth is on the horizon. Well, it actually already has started. Economic growth has started according to the numbers, and numbers don't lie, right? According to your outlook, with this influx of major federal funds and military spending over the next several years, economic growth is on the horizon despite tourism, which we'll talk about separately. How will you get economic activity to reach the poor and the middle class in the islands?
So that's the other part of this, is to get them into a workforce development program that we've initiated. I'll
Okay.
give you an example. Glenn Hunter of our broadband policy and development program has set aside and got a $2 million project just for training
Okay.
at the Northern Marianas College and NM Tech, and there's another training company that does that. I mean, that is a very incentivizing program that would provide skills that have never been available in the Commonwealth. That is, digital. And while you go to college or you go to this institution, there's a stipend. So uh, we're developing that workforce to get into. So there's all these parts that are in play. Um, and again, I wish had the lieutenant governor and I had really paid attention to the information that was going out so that people are informed of this initiative and uh, so that we can negate some of the doom and gloom narratives that are being put out there.
Well,
You
let me
know,
let me ask you that about that specifically then. Why do you think your administration has struggled so much the past 2 years to get your message out and to the public and to the media? And what are you going to do differently to be more effective at this?
well, uh, the one thing, and I don't want to make excuses about it. I should have just said never mind that. Uh, but when we came in, I had to, even my own budget was basically depleted. So I didn't have a lot of funding in the office of the governor
Mhm.
to look at a PIO. Previous administration had 10,
Wow.
10 of them. Today I only have one part-timer
Part-time volunteer,
and
Frankie Elliptical.
part-time volunteer. Frankie and
And
college have stepped in and I got nothing but gratitude to the guy and to Dr. G for allowing him. Albeit he is getting criticized out there now, but the guy never earned a penny doing work for the administration, even on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays and into the evening, right? So, but that aside, he also has his full-time job that he needed to take care of. And I finally come to realize that I cannot continue to depend on that. And because he also has a lot of projects and programs at the college that are going to be coming in. So that was our fault. I'll take full credit to that failure, that I should have really gotten one or two individuals to consolidate our information and send it out to the people. You know, but we're gonna work on that a lot more and
okay.
engage in the media a lot more than we have in the past. We're gonna do it exponentially.
This is a New Year's
Be-
resolution then?
Yeah, a New Year's resolution.
Okay, okay. Well, I want to go back to the economy. And in the editorial that we had about the indems, one of the things that we've been suggesting this is a pearl that you have, an unpolished pearl that the CNMI has that I think Guam wishes that we had, and that is just the high number of skilled but undocumented people that you have living mainly in Saipan, and
Mhm.
how, certain, switches to statutes could leverage economic development from them. For example, Donald Manglonia's driver's license bill that
Mhm.
never got past the Senate.
Mhm.
The idea of allowing these undocumented people, if they could get themselves an ID, like a driver's license under Donald Manglonia's proposed statute, whether they could get a business license for proprietor work. You have a whole lot, and it's no secret that there's a big black market of services provided by the undocumented. Everything from giving a manicure and pedicure to giving a haircut to mowing the lawn. That's money that the government is not capturing in tax revenue, and it's money that that is circulating in the economy in the black market. So is there anything, do you agree with any of our suggestions, and is there anything that you can do
Well,
to
I'm glad that you brought that up because I thought the Senate passed it. If it didn't pass in this legislature, I'm gonna talk to Donald and the new members of the Senate to really give that a consideration and get it done because you're absolutely right. We're one of the few jurisdiction in the United States that don't do that, right? Even if undocumented in the States, you get a driver's license. And that was an issue. And I know of several folks calling me because the companies whose employees cannot get to work because they didn't have a driver's license. And they didn't want to drive and be in violation. And some of these folks, folks are actually documented, but because their permits have basically expired and
overstay?
they've already submitted their renewal to Homeland to immigrations, the U.S. immigrations, and it's taken them a long time to get that back. So they basically cannot go to the Department of Public Safety to get a renewal because they don't have a valid immigration authorization. So I came to realize that, and I'm glad that Donald, Senator Donald, has that in the books, and I'm gonna encourage him to resurrect that and introduce in the next legislature.
How about the
I
idea of
think we're gonna have a much better environment this year. And in the next legislature, I'm gonna engage a lot more with them.
Is it because there of the switch in Senate president? Is that why you're saying that there's going to be a better environment?
No, you're leading me here.
Well, I'm trying. I'm trying.
I mean, yeah, we have our differences, but maybe I should have spent more time and effort and swallowed my pride a lot more than I should have with her and trying to get things done. But it
Well,
is what
Governor,
it is.
she put out and consistently put out a narrative in the media, and the media uh, covered these stories without verifying the facts and the numbers that you were somehow hiding 200 some million dollars in federal funds. I mean, that had a debilitating effect on public confidence in your administration.
Absolutely. And I wish I had $225 million, honestly. I mean, if I was hiding $225 million in ARPA funds,
Your name would be Ralph Torres.
I should get crucified for that.
Yeah.
That's absolute nonsense. And I actually almost jokingly asked the vice president of Bank of Guam here in Saipan, who's like, Miss Marcy Tumakani, Marcy, you guys hiding ARPA money in the bank? What accounts did they have it? And she just like look at me, and first she almost slapped me, and then she laughed and said, I wish we were doing that so we can help you. But there's a report that was submitted to her, to the Senate, when they were inquiring what happened. We even had bank records of when money was being taken out of the TCD from federal accounts in the bank to the general fund, and it got. I wish I had $75 million of that $225 million. So that's an absolute lie.
Okay.
Okay, to really come out in the paper about that or in the media. Maybe she was just misinformed or they didn't really verify it. But that's, I mean, one of the reporters, Ferdy Del Torre, asked me about that straight up in one of the press conferences. And I said, Ferdy, with all due respect, you should go back to the president and please ask her for the account number and which bank it's in so we can access it. And I thought we buried that issue, but it keeps getting resurrected. I
That's too bad.
mean, yeah.
That's too bad because it is without evidence and data to back it up, and
No.
it should be
I mean, the
unethical.
best data is to go directly to the bank.
Yeah. So,
Right?
Governor, how disappointed are you in both MVA and in the legislature's inability to provide proper oversight, rein in MVA, and make the necessary changes to effectively convince travelers from Korea, Japan, and elsewhere to visit Saipan, Tinian, and Rota?
Well, you know, I've had several meetings with MBA and not several, many meetings. And that's always been at the forefront is like, what are you doing to make the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas much more attractive? Uh, and there are some things that we could have done, little things that we could have done that made it more attractive and convenient for travelers. And let's not continue to just come up with consultancies to do our work. You know, we need to start engaging, but you know, again, MBA has its own board. Uh, Five of them are my appointees, and I I'm constantly looking at their expenditure and their funding. I mean, we limited them down to 4.5, where it could be up to 8 million and they could go have a party, but no. The legislature also took a look at that and says, no, you know, you're going to have to come back and request for some more from that tranche of funds if you really need it and justify it. And, you know, sometimes it's very hard sometimes to be a legislator, honest to God. I mean, I was there, and sometimes when you speak out and you point to something, you get demonized, you get vilified for even speaking out sense. Oh, he's just talking about, you know, nonsense, but it isn't. We gotta, what is it that we need to do seriously to help ourselves? You know, we cannot continue to say, throw money at just, okay, I have a consultancy in Japan or Korea that's going to take care of that. No, it's not. What is it? You know, and for decades, you know, the word, the terminology, destination enhancement continues to be thrown out in meetings and in public hearings, but we really have not enhanced the destination in decades. Uh, you go down to some of the, you know, sites, tourist sites, and I go crazy. Even I had a 12-year-old granddaughter who was here for the holidays and said, Papa, why is this like this? And I said, well, you know, I'm like, but you're the governor. So even my granddaughter is holding me accountable for that. You're the governor. You should just do something. You should just tell MVA or get somebody. So I have had the opportunity to go to all the tourist, or not all, most of the tourist sites, because they were, my family was here, and I was very surprised at some of the needs, and that's what we're doing, tourist enhancement. So by the time you come and visit us, Troy, all the roads in the what did I call Skid Row area would be paved, newly paved, and we would have so that's a $10 million initiative that was sitting there uh, when we came in, and then we send it out. So but we're doing destination enhancement, and that's what I continue to advocate to MBAs. Like, what is the product that we're sending out, a couple of $1 million to consultancies in Korea and Japan and in other places to sell when our destination is dilapidating, right? I don't want to go to, do you want to go to a dilapidated destination? No, you don't. Yeah, you want to go 3 days, 4 days to a fairly comfortable, attractive place that you can enjoy yourself. And that's what we need to do, is to pay
So
attention to our product a lot more.
you have the ability to move resources around or to get grant funding for destination enhancement. The legislature also has the ability to move resources and to appropriate for destination enhancement. What you both don't have control over is the marketing operations of MVA. And the facts and the data show that the marketing effort has woefully failed. Your tourism arrivals in 2024 were just 237,000, which is a far cry from the 500,000 from pre-pandemic. But there are more Japanese and Koreans traveling. They're just not choosing Guam, Saipan, Tinian, and Rota anymore. So at what point and what conversation, if any, are you going to have with the legislature about the possibility of changing things so that you have more direct control, or at least people who are qualified to make marketing decisions have more direct control over marketing the islands?
Yeah, it's something that I've considered. In fact, when I was in Guam for like one day, and I had the opportunity, and it was just crazy. I just asked one of my staff, like, "Do you know how to get a hold of Carl Gutierrez?" And Carl Gutierrez came down to my hotel. I was like, "Wow, I'm sorry," I was like, "No, I wanna." And so we just sat there, and I said, "What is it going to take?" And he said, "You need to get your rein in your MBA."
Oh, so even he agrees.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
he sees it. I see.
yeah.
Okay.
He says, "Arnold, you need to, and if there's anything that you need, just call me. It's for free now. I'm I'm not going to charge you for anything, but I want to help you." So I mean, we're looking at that too, and Carl, the Governor Gutierrez at this point in his life does not have the patience to continue to get into fights in Guam. So I think he's looking to help places like the Commonwealth and the island of Rhoda and the island of Tinian. He still has his hearts for over here, and is familial. He has familial relationship with the Commonwealth, and he said, "I want to help. Just let me know what I can do, and I'll try." But
Okay.
you're right. I mean, the governor's office should be a lot more uh, vigilant in controlling some of the programs out of MBA. And
This question comes from over the past couple of years, we've received several complaints from sources, most of whom said that they were your supporters in the 2022 campaign. Why haven't you been more aggressive in ridding the Commonwealth government of toxic Torres holdovers and having the indems change statutes so that you can make the big decisions and the big changes needed over at places like CUC, CPA, MVA, CCC, Cannabis Commission? And will you be more aggressive about these things within the next 2 years?
sure, again, I'm gonna go back to trying to stabilize it. So that took a lot of efforts. In government, stability is also very important. And some of these folks, albeit they're Republicans or they're Democrats, and they didn't support me in the gubernatorial, they didn't come stand with me, are in positions uh, that they have been in for several years, and they have that experience. And on top of that, they're civil service positions, right? Uh, I didn't have the ability, or and to a large extent, we should leave it at that, Troy. there are people that, yeah, I mean, this is a free country. You know, I cannot be throwing out people just because I want to insert Republicans into a directorship position, which is civil service, whose program has been stable and is very successful just because of the political wins and the changes in the Commonwealth. I can't do that. I don't have the heart to do that. And I don't, my conscience saying, no, if you're going to have this, you gotta figure out in the political world, that should make sense. But also in the political world, sometimes it's better to leave things alone and maybe next time around convince this guy to be from Democrat to be a Republican. But I don't, and that's the same thing, you know, if every 2 years or every 4 years we'll do that, we're gonna be a society that's always going to be in chaos.
What about things
And
that are not
yeah,
part?
I understand the criticism, but uh, you know, there were several. I'll be candid with you.
Please,
Uh,
yes.
there are several individuals that were heavily involved in our campaign, and when we were successful, they wanted that job. They wanted that job. They don't qualify for that job. Some of these jobs are critical, very critical positions. And I ended up pulling people from everywhere that qualify that I don't have the qualification, have the training, have the experience, have the leadership capacity. And that's what we needed to go forward. And so we go back to the same narrative. You throw everything out when there's a new party that comes in. It doesn't make sense for a small society like ours. So yeah, I'm being criticized about that, and you know, I've had those conversations also with some of my key advisors, and says, you know, they like, Arnold, you know, like, dude, can you please ask this guy to look for another position that he qualifies for?
I see.
Please, because what they're asking are really critical positions. You don't put a mechanic on a doctor's position. You don't put a doctor in a mechanic's position, that kind of stuff. But, you know, because of the glory and maybe in the pay scale, this is the price I want.
What
And
about things that are not party based? For example, the Commonwealth government continues to pay casino commissioners, but there's no casino. The Commonwealth government continues to pay major stipends to cannabis commissioners. That doesn't
okay,
seem to make sense with austerity. And so,
yeah, yeah, you know, both of these agencies are fee driven. The government, the in my point of view, the Commonwealth central government is not liable for the expenditures of the casino commission. It's not. I mean, I could be wrong, but in the casino law, there's a regulatory fee that they're charging the casino. That's the $3.5 million. And you know, they're in the beginning when everything was fine, they had 50 employees, highly paid employees. They have meetings 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week. You know, so no, I'm sorry, but this government is not liable for their expenditure. They still somehow managed, and you're absolutely right, somehow managed to continue their lease at a commercial building and continue to um, obligate uh, uh, liabilities. But the government is not liable for their expenditures. I'm sorry. They're supposed to regulate the industry to make sure that things are working right so that the regulatory fee that they're charging to the casino licensee is supposed to provide for their operations.
How,
Now,
in the midst of really everything that you've been through the past couple of years, considering it all, right? The work, the hours and the days that you pull, the time away from family, the pressure from the media, the pressure from the elitists and the higher ends of the private sector in the Commonwealth, the pressure from the Republicans. How does it make you feel when, either shenanigans or shortcomings or misconduct or failures of the legislature or of autonomous agencies not under your control get blamed on you?
how does it make me feel?
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you.
Are there a lot of four-letter
It really
words?
makes me feel it's and sometimes you think about these things and you said, what the F is this, right? Uh, and maybe I should change my personality and get more obnoxious and start, you know, either abolishing some of these agencies, and if they're not, but I do have a take the time to discuss some of the problems, like for example, CPA and CUC. I bring him in, and and they know what my wants are and what my thoughts are on some of the policies that they have instituted that does not serve the community or the airline industry, for example, the communities in general for energy. The cost of energy here is skyrocketed, right? So what can we do to do that? We've had many initiatives for renewables. How come you're dragging your feet on this? And I've asked them that. And I've actually uh, asked them to really consider a PPA, private power agreement, or power purchase agreement with a private company to run the power plants in the Commonwealth, and get away from that and so that we can have a renewable energy. I was in Guam. Before I was inaugurated, I had the opportunity to go look at Europe's solar farms there, and I talked to Peter Benavente, and he said, Gulf, we can do this and we can help if there's anything we can do. And so we need to begin to help ourselves first and make a decision to, one, really get to it. CUC has got to embrace renewables as part of the mix and embrace a power purchase agreement so that it eliminates the inefficiencies that continues to dog us. And so I have not, that has continued to be something that I tell these autonomous agencies. And and I was already jokingly I remember in a meeting with some, and Tina Sablan almost fell off her chair when I say, yeah, right. Even if it rains, they blame me. And it was during those times she said, I'm so happy I lost. But, you know, you know, I go home sometimes 5 in the evening with still some work, and I bring home work, and I bring home all the stress. And, it hasn't been very pleasant sometimes. And even for my family, especially, it really shows when my grandkids were here and I got to go to work. So why don't you take a vacation too, Pop? I said, I can't. But why don't you come? So I bring them to the office with me. But yeah, it's been a strain also in our family, the sacrifices that we continue to make. And that's par for the course for elected officials in the Commonwealth and even on Guam, for those that are very serious about their job. I've been in the legislature at $38,000. I left a $50,000 job just to be in the legislature, and my wife said, "You must have flunked math because you're going backwards. But it was that, and I will continue. I go to churches and sometimes people come up to me, it's like, we're praying for you. We continue to pray for you. Be strong. You're doing the right thing. It's not popular. Sometimes it's painful because what we read. Uh, I don't I don't want to say that I've desensitized myself to all that, but I want to say that I will continue to do the best I can, God willing.
But Governor, your predecessor did not until his last year in office, did not receive this type of scrutiny from the newspapers, HandMe, Chamber of Commerce, and some other people in the CNMI who are your biggest critics. And that's got to make you feel some kind of way because,
Well, I don't know how to answer that. And I probably have ideas, right? But
more
uh,
four-letter words.
I don't know. I mean, I'll let the public take a look at that also. And you've noticed it. 2 years into a really challenging situation that we were put in, I think we've done quite well for the people and stabilized, people's lives.
And you're going to get
Uh,
more of that information out in this coming year.
Absolutely, you
Okay.
know,
Oh,
and you let me ask you for a favor, you know, make some suggestions. Give us some suggestions on how to address these issues, and we could, talk to our head of departments and program managers. Say, hey, you're doing a good job. How come it's not out there? People are not aware of this. How can they access this program and the successes that you make? Uh, for example, Glenn's initiative with programs and with the digital thing. I know that there's a lot of young individuals that um, applied for it, and the slots are all filled. So I'm going to ask him to open up more slots. I got approached at the supermarkets, like, Governor, my son applied for this, but he's already too late. I said, like, really? That one thing was just open. It's like, there's no more slots. I said, let me talk to the program director and figure this out, because a lot of people are enthusiastic about getting into this kind of program. So whether it's that program or other opportunities for our people,
I think one place to start, a good suggestion from us at least. You mentioned at the beginning of our interview how it isn't just the legislature, but also even some of the agencies in the executive branch that have been doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Here's a
Yeah.
suggestion that I have. You can instruct these grant officials to reprogram travel funds into the main purposes of the grant.
Yep.
Yeah. Governor, the second to the last question, Vice Speaker Tony Ada from Guam, he was just inaugurated yesterday. He at a post-inauguration luncheon with members of the CNMI legislature there, he suggested something I thought was interesting. He didn't provide any details behind it, but I wanted to get your reaction to this. He said, when the CNMI goes for things in the federal government, Guam should back up the CNMI. And if the federal government's unwilling to give it to the CNMI, Guam should say, okay, then we're together. You're not giving it to us either. And vice versa. When Guam goes for something, the CNMI should. What's your reaction to that kind of suggestion?
That's a great leverage, and it absolutely, that's a great idea that we need to embrace and consider, um, because it's always been Guam gets it and we don't get anything, or we get it and Guam doesn't get anything. We should, and that's where we really, not only us, to insular areas, we should do it with all the insular areas, with the new governors, with the new uh, congresswoman that we have. We should all consolidate our thoughts and see how the insular areas could really consolidate its efforts and help each other and advocate for each other.
Okay. And my last question, Governor, has to do with your the announcement of your aligning with the Republican National Committee and how the local CNMI Republican Party has reacted to that. They sent out a letter to the RNC complaining about you. What are your thoughts?
Initially, I said, well, they haven't gotten over the fact that they lost the election.
Okay.
And the bitterness is still lingering. But, I've always been a Republican all my life. I got sort of kicked out with Apatang when they heard that we were interested in actually considering making a run, and the party just shut us down. And so eventually we made a decision to run independent. Now, the fact that we were able to figure out how to win the election, probably, the resentment still is still there. So, there's a lot of things that could happen in the next 2 years with Trump and with the Republican in power. I'm an independent. I was a Republican all my life. What is it that they don't like about me rejoining my party? Fitio did it. They didn't. We didn't demonize him. I was in the Republican core. We didn't demonize him. We welcomed him back.
Do you
So
suppose
obviously there are personalities in the core of the present Republican Party in the Commonwealth that is driving this, and it's not going to help the local party. I don't think the RNC is going to kick me out of the National Republican Party because I'm not aligned with the local Republican. There's a lot that needs to be fixed with the local Republican Party today, and the first thing they need to do is to, some of the personalities that are still there, that has driven a wedge between a lot of the factions in personalities in the previous, the Babalta supporters, the Palacios supporters, the Apatang supporters, the Atels and all, I mean, we've kind of just walked away from it. And that is unfortunate. Troy, let me tell you something. If this is such a robust party as it used to be, why wasn't this party able to field candidates for the House of Representatives? Why? Why did a lot of the Republican supporters in the previous election chose to become independent? Because they feel disenfranchised. And so that's something I cannot control, sir. But the fact is that I've been accepted by the Republican National Committee to join. So I'm doing this not just for myself, but for the greater good. I think it'll provide for better opportunities. The doors will open slightly. And if taking a lot of those criticism is part of that price, it's okay. It's okay.
Lastly,
The sun is going to come out tomorrow.
can you talk directly into the camera, not like you're talking to me, but talking to our viewers who will be watching this, and whether you want to speak in English or Chamorro, it's up to you, about your thoughts, your predictions, your hopes over the next for the next year.
For the next year.
Yeah.
To the people that are listening, we look forward to continuing to work hard, engaging with the legislature and the total leadership of the Commonwealth to come together to improve, really improve the lives of our people. And we need to put this bickering and this negativity against each other on pause. I'm ready. The lieutenant governor is ready to move in a respectful manner and in a civil manner towards a better Commonwealth. And we will continue to work on that. And I hope that we could have a robust discourse. But at the end of the day, we need to continue to focus what is our primary objectives and goals. For example, I was asked about, our new Congresswoman. Yeah, we differ in a lot of our thoughts, but at the end of the day, I know that her heart's also to work towards the betterment of the Commonwealth. That's the same thing with me. I differ in some of her approaches, but that doesn't make me, and I continue to say that I will continue to work with anybody, party affiliation, religion, creed, or race, as long as it benefits the people of the Commonwealth, I will continue to work.
Thank you, Governor Palacios.
Let's all work towards that end.
Thank you so much, Governor Palacios, for your time. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for the wake up editorial.
God bless you, sir. We'll wait for your op-ed on it.
All right. Okay.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you, sir.